on former CIA Larry Johnson. Larry, thank you so much for joining me.
Always a pleasure to do this, Stephen.
So, lots going on. You and I were talking offline. Crazy times. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, some of the news stories, the assassination attempt against Trump. First one that I wanted to talk about is just this morning I read Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have decided and announced that they will be sending more U.S. military men and women to beef up U.S. presence in the Middle East. Is this a kind way of saying they're preparing for attacks, they're preparing for war, or is this legitimately just beefing up our presence?
Well, we've got to figure out what are they going to do. But this is just not about having people in American uniforms standing around saying, "Hi, we're here." So, what is the precise mission? Look, this is historically how the United States gets itself into trouble. When you deploy military assets without having a clear idea about what in the hell you're doing. What's the objective? What's the purpose? What's the mission? So just, hey, we're going to have more people there. What, for target practice? Someone to shoot at? It's unlikely that they're going to put a ground force in. And what would the ground force do? Are we going to put the U.S. troops attacking, unarmed Palestinians? The last thing the United States wants to do is try to insert ground troops into Lebanon. The Hezbollah folks are quite well prepared, well entrenched to defend against that. But naval forces offshore, okay, they float around just like, we've seen this. They've been on station now for more than 2 months and have had to come off station because, they exhausted their resources. They were in a constant state of readiness with nothing happening. So this is nothing but political theater. That's all this is. Look at us. We're back in Israel. Well, you need to ask the question: what exactly are you doing? We're just putting more assets out there, so it looks like we're doing something. Oh, okay. That's what's going on.
Okay. I want to come back to Israel later in this interview, but I don't know if you saw this or not, but Florida House Representative Matt Gaetz shared on a podcast with Breitbart News that a high-up Department of Homeland Security official told him that there are 5 known assassination teams in the United States looking for opportunity to take out Donald Trump. What are your thoughts on this? And if there's 5 known, are there unknown assassin teams looking for him?
Well, again, so we know that there are 5 teams. Why aren't they in custody? Why are they being allowed to move around? Why haven't they been apprehended? So if you know that you got 5, then you know where they are. You know who they are. You know what they are. You pick them up. So, I think again, a lot of this is just political distraction. These 2 efforts that have taken place, the one where actual shots were fired, and then the follow-up one where the guy, Ryan Routh, was picked up at the golf course in West Palm. Particularly in Routh's case, somebody else was involved. I spoke with a buddy of mine who he left the DEA after 30 years, did his career with DEA, and then was in the sheriff's office in West Palm. And their office, actually, their headquarters is just across the street from that golf course around the corner. And he was saying it was his guys, his former guys. He's now retired, but were the first ones on the scene doing the crime scene of this. So a lot of questions. So apparently this Ryan drove into Florida and down to West Palm. So where did he drive from? Where did he start off? Where did he get the rifle? Because he's a 3-time convicted felon, so he couldn't have bought it online. He couldn't have bought it in a gun store because he wouldn't have passed the background check. So that means he had to have bought it from a private individual. Moreover, he's unemployed. Where's he getting his money? He's been a frequent traveler overseas and frequently involved and connected to Ukrainian intelligence sources. One can make the case that the Ukrainians certainly have a motive to try to kill Donald Trump if they can. They see him as a threat. They've made no, not tried to hide that at all. So the notion that this was just some lone actor acting on his own, plus, how did he know when Trump would be out on the golf course? How did he know he was actually going to play on Sunday? Just take a lucky guess? Where was he staying? What hotel? Was he sleeping in his car? So a lot of unanswered questions that are not being addressed yet. But then we get this nonsense. Oh, we got 5 known teams. Okay. Again, if you know them, go grab them. Don't allow them to go around. That sends a message.
Could it be something like the first assassination attempt, where it seemed like they didn't do anything until Thomas Matthew Crooks took the first shot, instead of neutralizing him before he could take shots?
Well, in this case, at least the Secret Service, at the golf course, they did their job. I was actually on a golf course in Washington, D.C. once 7 years ago when Joe Biden came to play with Hunter. So I was out there with a friend, and we saw firsthand what the Secret Service did. They have a team around the president, the vice president, up on the tee box. They had a team halfway down the fairway, and then they had a team going ahead to the next hole. So, they're constant looking, checking around, and that's how they caught this guy. The group that was ahead, they probably saw him from 20, 15 yards away, somewhere in that distance, and they reacted appropriately. Once they saw the rifle barrel, they didn't stop to ask questions. They didn't call anyone up to ask permission. They started firing at the target immediately, which forced Routh to run away.
And isn't Secret Service one of the only law enforcement that they are allowed to shoot and ask questions later?
Yeah, if they see a weapon in the vicinity of the protectee, they get to fire immediately.
Okay, that's what I thought. I remember reading.
Yeah.
Another question that I have about Ryan Routh is, today I was reading that the FBI said that he had a list of all the places that Donald Trump would be and where he might be. Then he has a letter that's been released apologizing for failing to finish Trump off and putting a bounty on Trump's head of $150,000. Why would the FBI and the Secret Service allow this information to come out? To me, this seems like they're fulfilling his wish of letting the call to action be released to the world. It seemed very odd to me.
Yeah. The Secret Service is not a trustworthy organization in my view right now. One of my buddies he retired from that organization, and he's just appalled at how they're behaving and conducting themselves. And then you just had an incident in the last couple of days where they described a Secret Service agent, not clear if he was uniformed or plain clothes, shot himself playing with his gun. Now, the only way you have a negligent discharge with a firearm like that is you're pointing it in an unsafe direction and you got your finger on the trigger. The rule of firearms, that's just fundamental, when you're taught, is the first rule of safety is you keep the gun pointed in a safe direction, and you don't put your finger on the trigger until the gun is pointed at what you intend to shoot. Real clear. Don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot. The gun doesn't shoot itself. So this reflects poor training.
Yeah. Did you ever see the Batman movie, The Dark Knight?
Yes, long time ago.
Yes, yeah, it has been out for a long time. But there's a part where he gets jailed and he gets access to TV, and he tells them, go kill this person if they don't release something in 24 hours. And here's how much you'll get. And next thing, every criminal in town is trying to take this guy out. Now Batman has to step in and basically protect this person's life. That was my first thought when I thought that the Secret Service and the FBI just basically made the announcement on behalf of this guy. If you can get Trump, this guy will give you $150,000. I don't know. It seems so weird to me.
Well, and so people need to step back and say, what is the obsession with trying to kill Trump? What is the threat? They keep trying to pretend that he's a new version of Adolf Hitler, that he's a threat somehow to democracy. But the threat he represents to the establishment is the motive. He doesn't need DC money. And what we've set up in the District of Columbia with the federal government is one of the most expensive whorehouses in the United States, a house of prostitution where people sell themselves for money and reap rich rewards out of it. And I mean, look, Bill and Hillary Clinton, they go to Washington. They're not wealthy when they go. They're wealthy when they leave. How about Joe Biden? He's been in government all of his life. He's now a very wealthy man. George W. Bush, ditto, wealthy man. Donald Trump didn't need their damn money. And because he doesn't need their money, tough to bribe him, tough to suborn him. And so he's willing to break up and shake up some of the incestuous behavior that has proliferated. That's why they want to kill him, because he really represents a threat to their livelihood. He's going to reduce our involvement with NATO. Good. I mean, the average American doesn't realize, we keep talking about, Russia and China, they're imperial powers. They're trying to take over the world. Nonsense. The only country in the world that has 750 plus military bases in 80 different countries is the United States. The only country. Russia has 21 bases outside of Russia, but there are 19 of those 21 are in countries that are literally on the border of Russia. Not exactly what you'd call a global imperial power. China only has one. They've got a naval facility, or they berth some of their ships in Havana, Cuba. That's it. So, I mean, if you're from Mars and you come down and say, who's the country that's trying to invade the world the most? Oh, that'd be the United States. We've got more soldiers posted overseas than Russia or China. And yet, Trump wants to reduce our dependence on NATO. They want to kill him. Trump wants to stop forever wars. They want to kill him. But why? Man, if you're holding Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics stock, you're doing well. Those stock prices have doubled in the last 2 years. Doubled. It's all about the Benjamins.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Follow the money, right? That's what you did professionally after the CIA.
Right.
Was a forensic auditor, where you guys would go in and follow the money and basically bust these big organizations. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that on my show, but that's what you do. You used to do. So, okay. Speaker Mike Johnson officially announced they need this continuing resolution to go forward. They're not going to get Democrat support. Therefore, they're dropping the SAVE Act. They're not going to make it mandatory law that only U.S. citizens with ID can vote. I mean, why do we even care about having Republicans in power if the Democrats literally just like stonewall them for 10 seconds and then get their way? It's like watching a child throw a tantrum and then mommy says, okay, you can have the milkshake, just don't cry, baby. It's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, no, I share your frustration. It's one reason I'm no longer a registered Republican, and one reason I no longer give them any money. Why do it? They stand for nothing. Some of them do, but the party as a whole stands for making money for the party and playing the Washington game, going along to get along. So, we'll be worse off with Democrats in charge, but we're not by a lot. It'll be a little bit worse because the Republicans aren't doing what they promised to do. what they claimed that they stood for. And it's unfortunate. But, Mike Johnson, again, just emblematic. Thank God he's no relation to me. But he's emblematic of the problem. He's gonna be one of these other guys that punches the economic lottery ticket. You watch, he's going to be a wealthy man when he leaves Washington.
Yeah. Is there somebody out there that's like a Newt Gingrich, a modern day one that actually has the fortitude to push things through, rally the base, get everyone to be cohesive and vote together? I don't know if I see it.
Well, I think, I've seen some hope of that in J.D. Vance. I think, Vance is, is much more articulate and thoughtful with respect to his policies. But again, he's a young guy and has some experience, but not a lot. And he's, still has a lot to learn about the corruption of Washington. But, he's not that far removed from coming out of of Appalachia, understands what poverty is and what people face. Jim Jordan, I think, too, has evinced the willingness to try to fight some of this, but they're not in the full leadership. They're not holding the reins, and so it's guys like Mike Johnson. But again, they're enabled by other Republicans who, appropriately deserve the title of Rhino.
Yeah. Okay. I had the privilege of interviewing Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And one of the questions that I asked him was how he thought Donald Trump might be able to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. He said, it's easy. Trump will make some calls and then he'll cut off all funding to Ukraine and force this thing to the negotiating table. It's going to have to be negotiated the way that everybody wants, not the way that Zelensky wants. I know that's kind of a simplistic answer, but is RFK Jr. right in the fact that this war ends once all of the free U.S. taxpayer money is cut off to Zelensky?
This war is ending regardless of what we do. Because right now, so we've spent reportedly close to $175 billion that we've sent to Ukraine. Think about that. That is basically a quarter, 25% of our total defense budget has been spent in Ukraine in the last 2.5 years. That's number one. Number two, even though we've appropriated, they've authorized expenditures Congress has of this money, well, that's like saying, hey, I'm going to give you the money, Stephen, to go buy a brand new Corvette. Okay. Go to the Chevy dealer, see if you can buy that Corvette. Yeah, you can. Give them the money and wait 1.5 years, and you'll take a delivery in, 18 months. So you got the money, you spent the money, do you have the car? No. And that's one of the problems that the United States faces in, quote, supporting Ukraine. We can't supply enough. We claim we're going to give them Patriots and HIMARS and ATACMS, but we don't have them in inventory, and the companies that are making them aren't making them in any kind of mass-produced fashion to really turn them over. So it's really this, we are a government that is built on nothing but lies and self-deception. We are unable to describe things as they are, and we make up euphemisms for other things, and then we convince ourselves that just because we've said we've appropriated money for Ukraine, that the actual weapons and armaments are going there. Well, they're not, number one. But more important, the Ukraine does not have the manpower, doesn't have the trained personnel, and has no means of getting it. The objective numbers show that in January of 2022, the Ukrainian population stood at 42 million. Now it's down around 19 million. 23 million have gone overseas or are dead or wounded. So there's a significant, probably more than 1 million casualties, at least. that Ukraine has suffered. But the other 22 million have gone elsewhere. They're living in other countries. They ain't going back. And so what this creates is a death spiral for Ukraine, because the men who ought to be out fathering children are not fathering children, and the children are not being born at a kind of rate. And anyway, if they were being born, it's going to be 18 years before they could be enlisted in the military, at least. So Ukraine is lacking on the manpower front, doesn't have any way to supplement that. They don't have their own industrial base to match and produce what they need to fight. And so they're totally reliant upon the West, NATO included, not just America, but but NATO nations, for essential equipment that they claim they need in the battle. And that equipment is getting wiped out at just, horrific rates.
Yeah. I wanted to just say something on my show. I don't think anyone that watches me is going to take this Ryan Routh up on his $150,000 offer. But just to be clear, this fool is broke. There is no money unless it's somebody else funding him, right? And that's where we need to get to the bottom of what's going on. But I wanted to clarify that. This guy put out this clarion call to take someone out. The dude is broke. He's got no money. So it's not that crazy to, or it's not, nobody should be taking it too seriously. Although, there might be people out there that don't watch this show. Okay. Final topic that I wanted to hit with you. Lots going on in Israel and the Middle East since you and I spoke last. Mossad, the CIA of Israel, was able over a multiple year mission to get these lithium, tainted lithium batteries in pagers and walkie-talkies in to the country. Suddenly, over 2,000 people have pagers blowing up, lighting on fire, exploding. A couple days later, they think, oh my gosh, we're through this. Walkie-talkies start exploding. Now we're looking at almost 5,000 people injured. And then just last night or the night before that, Colonel McGregor put up a video of this massive bomb being dropped on Lebanon. I've never seen a mushroom cloud like this. People are saying the explosion was so loud and the shock wave, you could feel it miles away. It rushed past you like a wind. To help my people understand what's going on in this battle between Israel and Hezbollah?
Israel is in the process of not learning the lesson that the United States failed to learn when it invaded Iwo Jima. We shelled that island for 2 weeks. I mean, destroyers and battleships and bombers were dropping all over it. And what did it accomplish? The Japanese were still dug in. They were buried underground. They were able to then come out and fight and kill. They killed about 4,000 Americans in the subsequent battle that lasted another 2 months. So what Israel has done is demonstrated that it cannot kill its way out of this. The use of the pagers and the walkie-talkies were an Israeli front company. They actually set up a production facility where they got the original beepers or pagers, and then they modified them to include explosives that would then, if you called the number, starts ringing, you then pick it up, and as it's ringing, it detonates. Despite reports that those were being used by Hezbollah fighters, that's not true. Hezbollah, according to Alistair Crook, so a British former member of MI6, who worked in the Middle East extensively, said that as far back as 18 years ago, Hezbollah was using fiber optic for its military communications. They were not using even encrypted pagers. That these pagers and walkie-talkies were distributed to civilians. Hezbollah is not just a military organization. It's a government organization. It does public welfare. Think about it. It's like in the Mormon church, you've got the storehouse principle where, people, there are stockpiles of food and other things that the church can, it's not just holding religious services, it's able to provide food and supplements to families in need. Well, that's sort of what Hezbollah does too. They run clinics, they run medical facilities, they run schools. So that's why a lot of these people that, the phone's ringing, they pick it up, it blows up in their face, takes out an eye or two, it disfigures the face, maybe, cuts an artery, they bleed out. It's killed children, it's killed women, it's killed physicians. And what it did is it completely compromised an Israeli intelligence capability. And they did it because they're desperate. The Israelis are. They've gotten themselves into a situation where they are trying to provoke Hezbollah into attacking them on the ground. And Hezbollah is not taking the bait. So Israel drops this massive bomb. It will kill Lebanese civilians who are above ground. But that's not where Hezbollah is. They're below ground in well-entrenched bunker facilities. And just like the Japanese on Iwo Jima, who got shelled relentlessly over a 2-week period, at the end of that 2-week period, they were still there ready to fight. And notice that even though Israel's launching all these airstrikes, well, Hezbollah's turning around, firing rockets deeper into Israel. They're now hitting outside of Haifa. They're hitting airports. They're hitting military facilities. They're hitting oil facilities. They're hitting power stations. They're really good. They're actually making an effort to hit sites that are important to the infrastructure of Israel, as opposed to just killing civilians in acts of, revenge. So Israel's got itself in a bind because here we are 11 months since the start of the war. If you mark it as October 7th, they have not defeated Hamas. Hamas is still operating. And Hamas, in fact, is reportedly recruiting more people who are angry, seeking revenge for what Israel has done to their families in Gaza. Israel has become more isolated internationally on the diplomatic front. And I think they insist they want to bring their population back to northern Israel who've been evacuated because of Hezbollah rockets and missiles coming in there. But Israel, it would have to actually invade southern Lebanon and root the Hezbollah fighters out. That means, if Hezbollah's got 50,000 fighters, that means Israel's going to need a minimum of 150 to 200,000. Because you need that kind of ratio when you're going up fighting an active defense. And I'm not sure Israel has that. There are 6, 7, 8 million people in the country total. So it's really, what we're seeing is some acts of desperation. What Israel wants is the same thing Ukraine wants. They want to get the United States directly involved in the war. They want to create a reaction, in the Ukrainian situation, a reaction by the Russians. In the Israeli situation, a reaction by Hezbollah or Iran that would lay a predicate for the United States to get directly involved militarily. And what's going on in Washington is they're looking at the election in November, and they don't want to do anything militarily that's going to get us into another war. Maybe after the election, we get into the war, but not before.
Yeah, maybe November 6th.
Yeah.
After well, actually, the new president probably won't be called for 2 weeks, based on the past. But once those are up, then yes, we give you the green light to start attacking. My first thought was, okay, if they don't have the people to attack, then the bombs get bigger. And why? But that's why I kept trying to figure out, like, this is one of the biggest bombs that's been dropped in a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Why? And did it hit a specific target? Did it hit out in the country just to demonstrate their power? I don't have all the answers there. I need to dig in a little bit more. But that was my first thought, was the bombs get bigger when you don't have the bodies. But you're saying this is just a strategy to drag Big Brother, the United States military, in to defend them.
Yeah. I mean, because look at the situation, and what does the United States bring to the table? We were unable to defeat the Houthis. We started in December Operation Prosperity Guardian. Okay, so here we are 9 months later, really 10 months later. And we pulled our aircraft carrier out of the Red Sea because we were unable to stop the Houthis. And we were worried about those ships getting hit. So, what this entire affair has exposed, both between Ukraine, the inability of the United States to sustain military supplies to someone who claims they need it, and then with respect to Israel and the Houthis, our inability to sustain naval operations and to carry those operations to a successful end where we can stop the threat that we claim exists, it's really exposed the weakness of the United States. And we keep talking about, oh, we're the most powerful in the world. Well, we're the most expensive, that's for sure. But in terms of our power is all to translate into accomplishment. And unfortunately, we look back at our roles in Afghanistan and Iraq. What did we accomplish? Victory? Peace? Democracy? No. We left the Taliban. we equipped the Taliban, so now they're like the third best equipped army in East Asia. Good accomplishment. Way to go, guys.
Yeah.
Joe Biden can put that sticker up there going, I did that.
Yeah. Another thing I did ask RFK Jr. was, if he's worried about the strength of the dollar. He said yes, and it's tied to the military. He said that if Trump can get in, one of his recommendations is going to be close down hundreds of bases around the world, bring people back home, make America too expensive to attack, and then dominate the globe by being an economic powerhouse, not a military powerhouse. But the military is strong because it's defending our actual borders, not the rest of the world. What are your thoughts on his comments?
Well, I think it's in the right direction, but the United States has got to change its attitude. We need a new attitude. Our attitude right now is, if we don't like what you're doing, we're going to impose economic sanctions on you. We're going to hurt you. You do what we want or else. So our entire approach is coercion. There's no romance. We're not bringing flowers and candy. We're not offering to take them to dinner. We're demanding immediate satisfaction or else. Well, that's like a serial criminal. And it's having the opposite effect in the world where people are going, we're sick and tired of you telling us what to do. You're not my mom and dad. And you're not going to tell me what I have to do. And it's one of those changes in attitude that we'll have to undertake. And I don't know if we're capable of it, Stephen, because within that change of attitude requires some humility. It requires, if you will, some repentance, some confession. You know what? We've been acting the bully. We have caused a lot of death and destruction around the world. We thought we were doing good. We always told ourselves we were doing it for the right reason. But when you go talk to the people in Vietnam and Somalia and Libya and Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan and Serbia and Panama, they got a whole different attitude about America and its military power and what it meant to them in their lives. I remember firsthand back in, this has been over 20 years ago, but I was in Panama doing a financial investigation on product counterfeiting, and a lot of counterfeit products going out of Panama into Colombia being sold on the black market with drug money. And I was dealing with this one woman. Well, it turned out we killed two of her children. They were ages 8 and 10 during our invasion of Panama to go after Noriega. She remembered that. Yeah. So, we want to pretend that we were, we got Noriega, we cleaned it up. And we enabled Noriega for years. It's just, we're so fickle in our policy. We set up Saddam Hussein, for God's sake. We facilitated him. We gave him intelligence. We were hand-carrying U.S. intelligence to Saddam Hussein during the war with Iran. And then we decide that Saddam Hussein's the baddest guy in the world and we got to hang him. We do. We get Muammar Gaddafi convinced, okay, to give up his weapons of mass destruction and cooperate with the United States. Then when it becomes the issue of oil, we betray him. He ends up getting murdered. I'm not. I'm anti this kind of policy that America has embarked on time and time again over the last 80 years. We need to stop it. We can be a force for good in the world, but so far we've been a real major force for a lot of pain and suffering, and we need to stop it.
Yeah. Oh, it's hard to turn these big ships around.
Yeah.
And point them in a different direction. I can believe that. So, Larry, always fun to come on and get your point of view. You see the world through a different lens. I appreciate it. Helps me see it through a different lens. If people want to follow you, stay up to date on some of these big international and domestic issues, where can I send them?
The sonar21.com. SONAR21.com stands for Son of the New American Revolution, 21st Century.
Oh, I always thought it was just sonar, like knowing what's happening, what's on the radar.
Well, that it does. It also translates into that. You're very smart in that respect.
Yeah, no, that's a double entendre. I like that. Hey, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, my friend. Thank you.